Hi students, in this video we'll be explaining very simply some of the key terms or key concepts included in language studies paper which comes in semester 1 for MA English. So I have included 10 terms uh, which comes in the unit 7 of this paper, and it includes concepts like Tagmemics, Chomsky's trace theory, the 1980 model, case, government and binding, discourse analysis, speech act theory, applied linguistics, contrastive linguistics, neurolinguistics, and forensic linguistics. So, first, let's look at the concept Tagmemics. Now, this was introduced by Kenneth L. Pike. He's an American linguist and anthropologist. He was born in 1912 and died in 2000, and he was the professor of linguistics at the University of Michigan. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for 15 consecutive years. And Pike is also known for his entertaining stories, poetry, and songs, etc. So it was he who developed Tagmemics while doing field research and teaching linguistics. Now, this theory, Tagmemics, it is an offshoot of the theory of structuralism in linguistics. But structuralism ignored functions of a linguistic form. Okay, it ignored functions and it concentrated mainly on form, structuralism. But Tagmemics fuses together form as well as function of a linguistic entity. We look at it more simply. First, the word Tagmemics or the term Tagmemics originated from the word tagmeme, which came from the Greek word tagma, which means arrangement. Okay, and Tagmemics basically is used for understanding language structures. Pike recommended a hierarchical order and labeling to understand the structure of languages. For example, if you have a sentence in a language, he stated that this sentence consists of 3 interlocking levels or 3 interlocking modes. They are phonology, grammar, and lexicon. You take any sentence in any language, it consists of these 3 interconnected or interlocking levels: phonology, grammar, and lexicon. And these 3 levels can be further analyzed at more simpler or smaller levels or units. For example, we can analyze or we can split this sentence on the basis of the different linguistic units within that sentence. It can be the phonemes, the sounds, the morphemes, which are the smallest meaningful unit. Then these morphemes club together to form words. These words club together to form phrases and clauses. And then these phrases or clauses give us sentences. And a group of sentences result in paragraphs and into higher levels of language like discourses, conversations, etc., etc. Okay, so that is what he says. Language can be understood on the basis of these tagmemes. What is a tagmeme? Tagmemes are the smallest units of meaning in language, and they are like building blocks that help us understand how words and sentences work together. So through Tagmemics, it breaks down language into smaller pieces called tagmemes. And just like the Lego bricks, they can be combined in different ways to create different meanings. With these blocks, we can, through different arrangements, we can make different structures, right? So just like that, these tagmemes, when they are arranged differently, you can give rise to different sentences or paragraphs or clauses or phrases, whatever it is. And then another interesting thing is that a tagmeme will have a different function in different sentences or in different contexts. For example, look at the word light in the first set of examples. In the first sentence, it is used as a noun. Turn on the light, please. In the second sentence, the same light is used as a verb. She will light the candles. In the third case, light is used as an adjective. The feather was light as a breeze. So here the word is different, but in different contexts it will have different functions. So just like that, the tagmemes will have different functions in different contexts. Another example, look at the word fast. It's used as a noun. He broke the fast with a hearty breakfast. Second, it's used as a verb. She can fast for a whole day. Third, it is used as an adjective. He's a fast runner. Third example, look at the word run. She went for a run in the park. Here it is used as a noun. Secondly, it is used as a verb. He likes to run every morning. And third, as an adjective, he has a runny nose. So through tagmemes, we get to know the function of each tagmeme in a sentence. And it also shows how different grammatical units or tagmemes relate to each other. So it's like figuring out how puzzle pieces fit together to make a complete picture. See this sentence, the cat chased the mouse. Here we understand the relationships between the different words or the different grammatical units. Here the cat, which is the subject, it is the one who is doing the action. And we understand what is the action done? It is chasing. So that is the verb. And then who is receiving the action or who is the object? The mouse. Okay, in that way, we understand the function that each grammatical unit or each linguistic unit or each tagmeme has on that sentence. Then another significant aspect of tagmemics is that it also teaches us about the importance of context in understanding language. So just like how the context of a conversation can change, the meaning of a word or phrase can also change according to different contexts, right? So tagmemics help us understand how words gain meaning based on their context. So if I use a word in one context, it doesn't mean that the word carries only that meaning in all the contexts. It can signify a different meaning in another context. For example, the word run can mean different things depending on the context. For example, look at the sentence in I run every morning. It is a verb. Run is a verb indicating an action here. Another sentence, in my nose started to run. Here it is used to describe a physical state, a running nose. Okay, that doesn't literally mean that the nose started to run. It shows a physical state that person is suffering from. Okay, so this is what is the importance of context in language. In different contexts, words carry different meanings. So that is the first concept, tagmemics. Next, moving on to the second, Chomsky's trace theory. It was in his 1975 book, Reflections on Languages, that Chomsky stated the trace theory or the movement rules. And it was also known as REST or Revised Extended Standard Theory. Now let's look what is this trace theory actually. It is a concept in linguistics that explains how sentences are structured in our minds when we speak or understand language. So this concept explains how sentences are structured in our mind when we speak or understand language. See, for example, when we speak or understand sentences, words often move around to fit the rules of grammar. Okay, let us imagine me speaking a sentence in any language, be it Malayalam or English, whatever. So that mental process is happening in my mind so that when I utter a sentence, it will be in a grammatical structure. It will have grammar, right? So that sort of arrangement and structuring happens in our mind. That is what trace theory is all about. Let's look at a sentence like one that we already saw. The cat chased the mouse. Now, if I want to ask a question, I might rearrange the words and make it like, did the cat chase the mouse? So notice how the word order changes. So Chomsky's trace theory helps us understand how our mind processes these changes in the order of words or in word order. So according to Chomsky, he says that when words move around in a sentence, they leave behind empty slots called traces. Empty slots called traces. When words move around in a sentence, they leave behind empty slots called traces. For example, think of traces as some placeholder where the words used to be. Maybe you, for example, you book a seat for your friend. You put some object on that chair so that everybody can see that it is already booked, or you see that reservation placard on seats. Okay, so traces are like those placeholders where the word used to be. So when you change the word order, some seats will be vacant. Already there was a seat, there was a word in that seat, but now you have changed the word order and the word changed its position in a different sentence. Maybe if you are changing a negative sentence into a positive sentence, or you are changing an active sentence into a passive sentence, the word order changes, right? So that vacant space which the word leaves is called a trace. So, trace theory helps us understand that our minds create a mental representation of the sentence with these traces. All this is happening in our minds quite involuntary. We are not knowing about all these things, but it is happening in our mind, and that is the reason why we are able to utter sentences logically and grammatically. Some mental process is working out there in our mind. Fine. So, even though we don't hear or see these traces, when someone speaks, our brain automatically fill in the gaps or rearrange words to understand or pronounce the sentence correctly. Now, the 1980 model. In 1980, Chomsky revised the trace theory and included concepts like case, government, and binding. So, the 1980 model is often referred to as GB, or government and binding. So, next, let us look at Chomsky's government and binding theory. Chomsky's government and binding theory is a framework in generative linguistics that seeks to explain how sentences are structured in human language. Okay, so it also explains how these sentences are structured in human language. And within this government and binding theory, there are several key components as well, like government theory, binding theory, and case theory. Now let's look at each of them. So these three theories are like special tools that help us understand how sentences are put together in languages. First, let us look at government theory. Government theory is all about who is in charge in a sentence, or who is that most important person, that ruling person in a sentence. So that is what it says. Government theory deals with the relationship between words in a sentence, particularly how certain words govern or control other words. So there will be some governing element in that sentence. It can be a verb or a preposition. And these words or these governing words have control over another elements, such as noun or pronoun. Okay, let's take the example of a sentence like John loves Mary. Here the word loves is like the boss. It tells us what's happening and who is doing it. Okay, what's happening? Love is happening. And who is loving? John is loving. Loving whom? It is Mary. Okay, so the word loves governs or controls Mary because it tells us what role she plays in the sentence. It's the same case in the case of John as well. Who is doing that loving, or who is being loved? So all that is controlled, governed, decided by that word, that verb named loves. Okay. Next theory is the binding theory. So, uh, let's talk about binding theory, which is like a rule book for pronouns and words like himself, herself, etc. Okay, it helps us understand how these words relate to other words in a sentence. So, that is, it addresses how pronouns and reflexives like himself, herself, itself are interpreted in a sentence. It outlines principles that govern the relationship between pronouns or reflexives and their antecedents, the noun or phrase they refer to. For example, look at the sentence John loves himself. The word himself is connected to John. Like it's like saying John loves John. So this word himself binds it to that noun. Okay, John and himself both are the same. Both refers to the same person. So there is a binding between John and himself, which is called anaphora. That means when a pronoun refers back to a previously mentioned noun, that is called anaphora. So himself refers to the previously mentioned noun, that is John. And similarly, we also have another uh, idea called co-reference, where two expressions refer to the same entity. It can also be called co-reference because John and himself, it refers to the same person. So, in binding theory, when you use words like pronouns or reflexives, there is a sort of binding happening between that pronoun and the previously mentioned noun. Okay, or there is something called co-reference where the two expressions refer to the same entity. So, that is binding theory. And third is case theory. What is case theory? Case theory helps us understand the jobs of different words in a sentence. Each word in a sentence will have a special role, right? It can be a subject, it can be an object, it can be a verb, it can be a noun, it can be a pronoun, it can be a preposition. So it will have different functions, different roles. So that's what it says. Case theory deals with the assignment of grammatical cases, such as nominative, accusative, dative, etc., to pronoun phrases in a sentence. It explains how different roles or functions within a sentence are marked through the assignment of cases to nouns and pronouns. So each of these units in a sentence will have a special role, a special case to perform. So case theory helps determine the syntactic relationship between elements in a sentence by indicating their grammatical roles such as subject, object, indirect object, etc. Okay, so in a sentence you have something called the syntactic structure or the syntactic relationship, or simply called word order, the order of words in a sentence that gives rise to a meaningful sentence. You cannot put words in any form. You have to arrange it in a particular form so that it makes sense, it makes a meaningful utterance or a sentence. Okay, and in such a meaningful arrangement, each of these words will have a specific case or a specific function to perform. That is what is discussed in case theory. For example, in the sentence, she gave him a book. She is doing the giving, so she is the subject, and him is the object because he is getting that book. You can also say that him is like an indirect object. So that's what about case theory. And so these government theory, binding theory, and case theory are like guides to understanding how words work together in sentences. They help us figure out who is in charge or how words connect and what are the roles they play. Okay. Next, we move on to the fifth concept, discourse analysis. Now, what is discourse analysis? Discourse analysis in linguistics is the study of language beyond the level of individual words and sentences. Okay? Instead, it focuses on analyzing larger units of language such as conversations, texts, or speeches to understand how language is used in social context to convey meaning, shape identities, and negotiate power dynamics. So, what does that mean? So, that means discourse analysis uh, looks at the big picture. Instead of just focusing on individual words or sentences, discourse analysis looks at whole conversations, stories, speeches, etc. Bigger levels of language. And it's also about understanding how language is used in different situations, different contexts, like when people talk to each other, uh, what type of language is used when a person is giving a speech, uh, public speaking, what type of language he uses when he is talking to somebody who's so young, a child, the style of language that he employs when he talks to a superior, uh, when he talks to his family members, like that. Depending on the context, the language that we use, the style of language that we use is also changing. So there are some key features of discourse analysis. One is that contextual approach. That means discourse analysis examines language in its broader social and cultural context. It considers factors such as the participants involved, how they are related, what is the setting, what are the cultural norms. All these things are considered when we use language. Second is the textual analysis. That means, see, you might have heard of something called the style of writing. For example, certain writers have their own style of writing. For example, Shakespeare, Kalidasa, Tagore, they all have their own styles of writing. Okay, so textual analysis means analyzing such written or spoken texts to identify patterns, themes, and structures. So the researchers, they examine the language text, and understand how the language is organized, how ideas are connected, how meaning is constructed, etc. So this is what you mean by the textual analysis, analyzing these written or spoken text to identify the patterns. Okay. Another aspect is the another aspect is the pragmatic aspect. See, when through discourse analysis, we can also look at the practical aspect, or looking at why people say things in a particular context. Why do they talk like that? What do they want to achieve when they talk or write like that? What is their intention? Okay, this is called the practical aspect. Okay, so what is the goal of such a communication? What do they want? If somebody is asking you that I'm hungry, I want food, there is a goal behind stating that sentence, behind that utterance. They want food. They are communicating that they are hungry, they want food. Okay, so understanding the intentions and interpreting meaning, that is what you mean by the practical or the pragmatic aspect. Next aspect is the power and ideology. See, language manifests power very evidently. You can see it in conversations, in texts, etc. Some people show their power or influence through the language that they speak, the words that they use. Okay, so this shows that power dynamics. Okay, so that power and ideology, that aspect examines how language reflects and reproduces power. It shows how social hierarchies operate. Okay, it shows how language can be used to reinforce or challenge dominant discourses. And then you have the multimodal analysis. Multimodal analysis means it's not just words, it's about gestures, images, and other ways people use to communicate. Everything together create meaning, right? When you speak to someone, it is not just the words that you use, your expressions, the intonation, the tone, the pitch of your speaking, all this adds to the meaning. Okay, so that is what you mean by the multimodal analysis. That is something in addition to that spoken and written language, that those images, gestures, all those non-verbal cues that you show to convey your meaning is what you mean by multimodal analysis. So all this is involved in what? In discourse analysis. So that's it. Next, moving on to speech act theory. Speech act theory is a subfield of pragmatics, and it studies how words are used to both convey information and perform actions. That means speech act theory is all about understanding the intention behind what people say or write. It's not just about the words themselves, but also about what those words are meant to do. So it's like the action through words. That means, according to speech act theory, when we speak or write, we are not only conveying information, but we are also performing some action. Our words have the power to change the world around us. Okay, even if you simply ask somebody to give you a pen, through that words, you are inciting an action. Or when you write a novel or a poem, sometimes that will inspire others to do something or change their depression or change their mood. Some action is also involved along with that uh, linguistic uh, purpose. So, this theory was introduced by the Oxford philosopher J.L. Austin in his book How to Do Things with Words. And it was further developed by an American philosopher, J.R. Searle. So, both the theorists have stated that the meaning of a speech act depends heavily on the context in which it is used. So, context is very important, it matters a lot. The same words can have different meanings or intentions in different situations. Depending on the context, as we have discussed earlier, um, it can have different meanings or different intentions in different situations. Okay, so context is very important in speech act theory. And there are three main types of speech acts. One is locutionary act, second is illocutionary act, and third, perlocutionary acts. Locutionary acts are actual words and sentences that we use to communicate. We use actual words and sentences, right, to communicate, be it in any language, but we use words or sentences to communicate. So those actual words and sentences are called locutionary act. Second, illocutionary act means the intentions or purposes behind our words. For example, when we make a promise or when we give an order or ask a question, we are performing illocutionary acts. For example, I am asking, can you pass the salt? It is a request. So, what is my intention? I want that salt. I'm asking a question or I am requesting for that salt. Then, if I'm promising somebody, I promise to be there on time. Okay? So, there is an intention behind that promise. It's a trust. I'm giving somebody a word of trust. I'll definitely come on time. Okay? And then, if I'm giving a command like get out, shut up, something like that, there is an intention behind uttering those words. Maybe I'm irritated, I'm angry at somebody, I just want to uh, stop seeing that person, to send him out, whatever. Okay, so that intention is what you mean by illocutionary act. And third is perlocutionary acts. And these are the effects or consequences of our words on the listener or reader. It's how our words impact others, such as persuading them to do something or making them feel a certain way. Even if you speak in a very angry way to somebody, that will also have some impact on somebody. If you talk in a very soothing way to somebody, that will also have an impact on the other person, right? So it is the consequence, it is the impact of our words on the listener or the reader. Okay, so that's about speech act theory. Moving on to the next is applied linguistics. So, linguistics, we all know it is the scientific study of language and its structure. And it explores how languages are structured, how they function, and how they are used in communication. And we have learned that the linguist analyzes sounds, grammar, meaning, vocabulary, etc., to understand the different rules and patterns in a language. Okay, and linguistics also has several subfields like phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Okay, all this we have learned. Now let's look at what is applied linguistics. So, applied linguistics, or be it the other terms that we will be discussing, like contrastive linguistics or neurolinguistics, forensic linguistics, all these are like special branches of language science. It helps us to understand how language works and how we can use it in different ways. So, applied linguistics is like using language knowledge to solve real world problems. Okay, it helps us with things like teaching languages, translating, making some laws or regulations, policies. We use language for all that. Even if you go to the railway station, we see some rules written on that wall. Even the Constitution of India, all that, for all that, language is used to communicate all these things. You take physics texts, chemistry textbooks, again you need language to communicate these ideas. All those scientific processes, everything is happening around us, all those natural process, those chemical reactions, all that is happening, but we need a language to uh, communicate it to the people. We need a medium to describe that process so that everybody can understand what is happening. Okay, so at that application level, we use language, that is called applied linguistics. So applied linguists develop methods to teach languages better and create materials to help people learn languages easier. Okay, next is contrastive linguistics. Contrastive linguistics is about comparing languages to see how they are familiar or different. It helps us understand how people learn new languages by showing the differences between their native language and the one they are learning. So, we all have our native language, be it Malayalam or Hindi, whatever it is. But we also learn a foreign language like English. Okay, we'll be looking at about what are the similarities, what are the differences, etc. So that is what you learn in contrastive linguistics. So it's like a guidebook for language learners. It helps them to avoid mistakes and understand the new language faster. We understand how the new language is different from our native language, how certain sounds are pronounced differently in the new language, but in another way in our language. What are the words used for certain things in the new language? What are the and how is it different from what we are using, etc. So, contrastive linguistics is used in translation and interpretation. Okay, and it also shows the changes, the differences, the potential difficulties that may arise when you translate one thing into another language. Next is neurolinguistics. Neurolinguistics is like looking inside the brain to see how it understands and uses language. It helps us understand how language is stored and processed in the brain. Okay, and neurolinguists use many machines to study how the brain works. When we talk, when we listen, when we read, even when we sleep or dream, language is at work. Okay, so these neurolinguists, they use techniques like imaging, brain imaging, fMRI, EEG, or other sorts of neuropsychological testings to see how language functions in the brain. And it also learns how during a child's developmental phase our language is also improving, right? It's not like when I was 10 years old, the way I was speaking or using the language, and today when I use the language, it's different. So that can be tracked, that the development of language at each of these developmental phases, that can be tracked through neurolinguistics. And lastly, we have forensic linguistics. It's like being a language detective. It helps solve crimes by analyzing language evidence like recorded conversations or written texts. Forensic linguists can tell who wrote something, or if someone is lying. You have this lie detection techniques by studying how they use language. Okay, so it is mainly used to solve crimes, to analyze legal documents, or resolve some disputes in legal proceedings. And it can be used to attest in court as testimony regarding some language related issues. And we can see that forensic linguists, they work with forensic psychologists, criminologists, and lawyers to provide insights into the language related aspect of criminal investigations and etc. So these are the different types of linguistics: applied linguistics, contrastive linguistics, neurolinguistics, and forensic linguistics. And all these are all about exploring different aspects of language in exciting ways. They help us teach languages better, understand how our brains work with language, and even solve mysteries using language clues. So these are the terms involved in Unit 7. Thank you.